This is a part of being a man, is owning up to the actions here. When you threaten violence against someone, part of being a man is taking ownership of your actions, taking responsibility.
I gotta tell you, that was nice. Sometimes, and see, this is an interesting framework when it comes to pragmatic ego management, and what I often refer to as the art of stalking is. It's a tricky balance, but sometimes people just need to get smacked down. Like sometimes people just need to get a bit of humble pie. All right, everyone, we're back. This is Worthington with the PEM podcast, and we haven't been doing as much filming lately. I'm really busy with so many different things, and so we're knocking an episode out right now, but it's under some pressure, about to head into a city council hearing. It's going to be all-out war. These guys have been really something. Planning department of the city of Carlsbad is a tyrannical group, so getting ready for that today. Decided to fit an episode in. We're getting into it. The platform Psychedelics is growing, guys. So if you get a chance, go check it out. We launched our attorney section. We've only got one attorney up right now. If you know any attorneys that might be interested in advertising their services, go ahead and log on the site, get them to join up. But so. Also been dealing with a lot of egoic stuff, been dealing with the art of stalking. I've mentioned that on here before. I've got a woman who's blackmailing me right now, trying to extort from me. I hired her to work in Las Vegas at the SciCon event. It was an ill-advised hire. I knew that. Other people on the team knew that. But we were insecure. See, there you go. When you have insecurity, sometimes you do stupid things. What we were insecure about was the fact that we're spending probably close to $10,000 on the booth, but we weren't sure if our booth was going to be interesting, how much traction we were going to get, if we were going to get value out of our, promotional dollars that we were spending. And so we had a meeting and said, it might not hurt to have some feminine energy, and I didn't have a lot of choices for that. And there was someone I knew, and there were red flags there, and it blew up, and now I'm having to stalk this person. I've had to block her for the moment. I will not cut her out completely, and that's a whole topic we haven't delved into deep enough, but she's been threatening to lie and say that she was physically abused. She's been saying that she wasn't paid fairly. This woman did not work. The second day of the event, was too hungover from drugs and alcohol. She's been claiming she's going to expose me as a drug addict and abuser and all kinds of crazy things. I actually only did psychedelics on that journey. I didn't do any blow or anything like that, which she actually did some coke, and so she's saying that she has me on video. She's nuts. She's not all there. There's a lot of trauma fueling her mentality and perspective on life, and so she knows that I have a few assets. I've got a couple of homes and things that I'm dealing with, and allowed me to build this platform that I've built, and so she's, I think, believes that she's entitled to something. So that's been an interesting journey. A lot there. Too much to get into right now. Would love to take a deeper dive. But as I said, I got this hearing this evening, so we're going to be getting into that, and I got to be prepared for it. So let's get into these videos. We'll do some reactions, run through it, see what we got. And, hopefully next week I'll have more time to go a little deeper on some of these topics that I just brought up. So let's see what we got.
So I've done the math, and apparently in order for TikTok to pay off my student loans in one fell swoop, I would need 247 million people to watch this video for 5 seconds, which you've just done. So thank you. I appreciate it. We'll see how this goes. You can come back and check. Unfortunately, in order to get paid by TikTok, you have to make your videos a minute long, and I don't have that much content to offer. I'm just a guy with a pretty bad mustache. So I'm just going to eat this bowl of cereal, Spencer Shea from iCarly style, and stare out that window right there until time's up. Feel free to hang out if you want to. I'd appreciate the company, but I'll go ahead and set this down over here so you don't have to hear me chew so loud. It's not that kind of video, don't worry.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. This is the power of social media and streaming channels like this. And if we want to help someone out, we can do it by just applying our attention to someone, which is it's a strange world we live in. It's so interesting. But I certainly see ways this could be abused, right? It's just like anything. It's like we did an episode about the people with the signs on the side of the road saying they needed help. I don't know if you guys, some of you may have watched that episode. We spoke about how I don't help those folks because I don't know enough about them. I don't know that this guy has any student loans. He looks like he's a student. I could see him studying something and going to a school and potentially being in debt for something, but I don't know that. Doesn't really hurt me to watch his video. For 5 seconds, as he said. So interesting trend. I don't see much wrong with it. Doesn't hurt me any, really, other than losing 5 seconds of my time, I guess. Really interesting idea. So at what point does it become sort of this pyramid scheme that doesn't work is what my question is, right? Like, could we all do this and get, like, say, rich, right? So let's say we've systemized this. I guess because I went to school for math, I'm trying to see how this would work. I wonder if there's like some game theory kind of approach to this that would say whether this is possible or not, right? Who would get left behind, right? Could we all do this for every individual in the United States, let's say, or every individual in any location, any area? Could we all say, well, today's this person's time, this person's time? I guess the issue would be that there's too many people. So if you got 300 million people, we got to multiply that by 5 seconds. It's an interesting idea. I'm trying to figure out if we could all get rich. Could an entire country become affluent? Could an entire country become millionaires just off of this? How does that work? So these advertisers are paying? Like, I don't know how that would work. I think the system would have to break down at some point, right? Because the mega corporations are paying for this, I guess. So, like, man, I'd like to dig into this a little deeper because I'd like to see it systemized. Like, why just student loans? Why not everyone? Why not everyone becomes rich, right? Where does this break down? And I'm sure it does break down somewhere because resources are always finite. So, man, we need like some mathematicians and we need some people on here that have a real understanding of the resource levels and who's funding these dollars that go to these influencers. Really interesting idea. I don't have enough time to go into this right now. We need like a whiteboard. We need to start doing some, equations and doing some math here, but I like it. I just don't think, I don't think it'll work in the end. That's just my theory, my hypothesis, but, man, if it did work, we should get to work on it right away. Anyway, I got a lot of problems, guys. So I could use some more money myself. This would be awesome. So, cool. I don't know what else to say there, guys. We'd have to do a deeper dive. Would definitely, maybe we should follow this in further episodes. We'll see.
I could see some shady, evil people.
Well, there's also that.
Making up a story about, my kid.
Of course. Yeah. There's all of that. It's not, that's going to happen soon. Those people on the side of the road are going to figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to stop being on the side of the road and they're going to be on here. That's going to be coming.
That's a whole nother thing, too. We'll get into it.
I'm actually seeing that already. I've been seeing it on lives on TikTok where, like, there's a woman, she's probably in, I don't know where she's at, in Korea or China or somewhere, and she's clearly not doing well, at least it appears that way. And she's like sitting in front of some locker and she's got her special needs child and she just sits there. She's on live. That's all she does. She just sits there. So, people are sending roses and sending coins.
We just put a net up on the Golden Gate Bridge. We spent 23 years fighting to raise the net at the Golden Gate Bridge. It is in place.
I've opened up on this app before, about 2 times in my life, where I walked up to the roof of my apartment building and contemplated jumping off. The truth is, there was actually a 3rd time. But the 3rd time, when I walked upstairs, the door to the roof was closed. The first 2 times, the door to the roof was open, no clue why. But the 3rd time, it was closed. And there was a sign on the handle of the door that said, "Push, an alarm will sound." And I didn't want the alarm to sound. I mean, it's stupid. I know, it doesn't make any sense. If I'm thinking about killing myself, why would I care if an alarm goes off beforehand? But for some reason, that was enough to stop me. Just seeing that made me turn around, go back downstairs, and just go back into my apartment. A lot of people think suicide is inevitable, right? I see a lot of comments on that video saying things like, wouldn't they just jump off the net afterwards? Or doesn't this just encourage them to do this somewhere else? Or it's unfortunate, but eventually they'll find a way. The truth is, suicide is often a very rash decision. And sometimes even the smallest obstacle can be the difference between life and death. Most people who don't succeed the first time never attempt again. Which is why this is a good thing.
Slippery slope, guys. If you know me and you've been around long enough, you understand that I'm a supporter and proponent of freedom. And although his doorway situation, I don't think applies to that. Hey, a private building should be able to say there's going to be an alarm and stop you from going on the roof. Although I might want to go on the roof, not to kill myself, maybe to sit there and enjoy the outside air. And now because we got a problem with people killing themselves, now I can't enjoy that particular freedom. See how that works? And that then starts to extend to things like the Second Amendment and right to bear arms and things like that. And then we start saying, well, we need to keep these guns out of people's hands because it's too easy. And we get back to, I actually reviewed our motto, and I think maybe I have the wording wrong on it. I think solace actually translates to health. It's securitas, actually, is what it should be. So I'm going to change that. But securitas et libertas mutuo exclusae sunt means that, freedom and liberty are mutually exclusive. So I'm concerned about things like this. I'm not saying we shouldn't try and prevent people from killing themselves into some rash and not well thought out emotional reaction to something they're going through in the moment that could be a very permanent, have a very permanent result. And I'm not anti any type of safety, right? Or, but I'm concerned sometimes when we start to go into these topics about safety, because many of the sheeple out there believe that safety should always come first above everything else. And I am not one of those. I do not think that safety should come first before everything else. And I think it should be considered very carefully when we start putting safety before freedom. So, a net under the Golden Gate Bridge, I don't think that affects anyone's freedom, other than their freedom to commit suicide, I guess. And they're still free to commit suicide. They hit the net, and they could climb and decide to jump off further, and I'm assuming that would probably be effective. So, so to me, a net, no problem there. If I'm living in a building and now I've lost the ability to set up my chair on the rooftop, which I used to enjoy and see a view, I might not like that so much. Maybe there could be other solutions to that problem in those circumstances. I think it's a very nuanced conversation, but I see a slippery slope here, guys, that points to this problem of safety versus freedom and what do we choose. And oftentimes I don't think enough deep dive, thinking, really looking at a more meticulous, particulate way of addressing the situation is applied. People just hear, oh, safe, and it would save my loved one's life who had committed suicide, and so let's legislate now, let's move now. And I don't see it that way, and I'm not someone who hasn't lost people. That's the other thing. I think sometimes people might be quick to accuse and say, oh, that's because you haven't lost anyone. Nope. I've lost people. I lost some of the dearest people in my life, and I'm not out here mandating and leading the charge to make things safer because I don't agree with that. Making things safer should be done in a careful way and a careful consideration to freedom. And how do we manage those two sort of polar opposites? And we do it in a way that we least impinge on freedom is what I would say. And so when it comes to a net on the bottom of a bridge, I don't see any issue with that. But we can extrapolate much further. And as I said, referencing the Second Amendment, rights, that's where we start to get into far more tricky territory. And then we even get into First Amendment rights and, people saying things might not be too safe for your ears. Then I have real problems with that. So, I think it's a big conversation, and it's very specific to each circumstance, very specific to a lot of things. The same arguments, of course, get brought up around the war on drugs and substances and things like this. And I have the same attitude there, that freedom needs to be considered very carefully. And then also pragmatically, because a lot of times some of the things we've done to supposedly make people safer have actually done a lot more harm to people and harmed many more people as a result of that effort. So Yeah, I think it's much more complex than simple black and white. This is going to save somebody. Okay, at what cost to everyone else? At what cost to liberty? Are there other solutions? Things like that.
You said on your Twitter, I saw this: men play chess, women play checkers. I was curious. I was curious. What do you mean by that?
So, like, my dad raised me to understand that men play chess and women play checkers, so that they have a completely different line of thinking than women do. And I didn't really used to, like, understand what he was talking about, but as I got older, I did, and especially the last couple of years, I see in real time every day men creating circumstances for things that women don't see, whether it be positive or negative. And men are meant to do that, he said, because they are the leaders in the home. So they're supposed to create the circumstances for their family's success. And they do that by chess. And it happens completely unbeknownst to women because we just don't think in that way. And that's a good thing. Like, they have a very, like, a strong ability to compartmentalize and so that they can keep going in difficult situations and hardships that chisel them rather than cripple women, right? Just that's how they become great men and fathers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you give an example of what does it mean women play with chess? Like,
you mean men play chess?
Yeah.
And women, okay,
Checkers,
so
sorry, women.
An example of this, I would say, is a lot of women feminists who are in power. A lot of times they think that they are the ones pulling the strings and making decisions, and men are giving them positions of power so that they can feel like they're making good moves. The whole time the men are behind the scenes pulling the strings on what they're doing, and even actually more in control than they understand them to be, and just using the women as a pawn. So they're playing chess in real time and moving all the pieces on the board. Meanwhile, the women think they're making decisions, but the men are just setting them up to do exactly what they want, whether they decide to submit or not. So a lot of women are like, oh, I would never submit to a man. But in actuality, either with men in society, whether you choose to submit or not, they're going to make you submit. Like, you either choose to submit to a husband and a father who loves and cares about you and God, or you're going to submit to someone in corporate America that's just going to play chess moves with you for their own benefit and their own family. So that's a real-time example. Judges, lawyers, whatever.
Word? Now, do any of the girls disagree with her?
I would say I agree with.
Yeah, I don't agree. The reason I don't agree is, first of all, her logic's saying that there's no way out of that subjugation quotient that she just explained and described. But what she actually described is not specific to gender. The majority of the population of the planet Earth are in that situation, both men and women. And they are having their strings pulled by the corporate, one percenters, the big time people who have been in control since the beginning of agrarian civilization. So it's weird that we get into this gender thing. It's really this kind of war of the sexes thing that's been going on for a while. Men and women are different to some degree, but women are very capable in a lot of ways of being very strategic. And yes, if they allow their emotions to run things, they can be more ineffectual, not as effective as men in certain circumstances, but not always. There are men out there. There are women out there that you would want to be very careful with. There are very dangerous women out there. One of which that you may want to pay attention to is Kim Jong-un's sister. She apparently is someone very high up in North Korea's, structure, and of course she isn't the main leader of the country, and of course has to show fealty to her brother. She still is a very dangerous person and has enormous power and control. And it was an interesting rise to power for her. I watched a short documentary about their schooling, I believe in, was it Switzerland or Holland or something like this, and then or the Netherlands, and then they were kind of hidden in secrecy, but it was both brother and sister, and then she has kind of risen to the forefront and now commands a certain presence, and she is there at these United Nations, meetings or these large, political interactions between nation states and powerful countries. She's sitting right there negotiating and very much in a position of serious power. To exit the place where you're having your strings pulled is an enormous battle. It's what I'm dealing with. In fact, it's part of what's going on with this hearing that I'm going into. And this woman saying that whether you submit to a man in the home and someone who quote unquote loves you, or whether you're submitting to someone in corporate America, she's under the impression that you have to choose one of these pathways, that there aren't other options. There's actually other options maybe people don't ever consider. One option is to be purposefully homeless, which would require a great amount of skill, actually, to do that. But it's doable, and it's sort of part of the true Rastafarian level of existence, which I'm not sure that many people truly understand Rastafarianism. I think people think that being Rastafarian means listening to Bob Marley and smoking weed. Rastafarianism is a complete rejection of what we call society and civilization, based off of course of history of subjugation and slavery. These people renounced it altogether. Now, I'm no expert on the Rastafarian religion and the way that they approach their spiritual practice, but I do know that at its core, and the people who are the most dedicated to it, they refuse to engage in what we consider society's economic structures and how that's done. And so they don't answer. Now, there's always a certain amount of impingement on one's life, right? So I'm sure they have to dodge the police and, sleeping in public places, and how do they do all that? It's getting tougher and tougher in this world, for sure. But to say that's a gender issue, it's not. The other thing that she left out is you could be an entrepreneur. Now, do you still pay taxes? Do you still have some level of, homage, paying homage to someone else under someone's control? Yes. I mean, I'm in those circumstances myself. You could also go the illegal route. You could become someone who decides to be a criminal on some level and operates within some sort of subversive criminal activity that is not, necessarily within a hierarchical structure. There are people out there who are freelancers, let's say. If they don't have the high degree of skill and ability to manage and operate there, they will find themselves in prison and find themselves subjugated yet again. So there's always the pitfalls there. But to say that being a woman is what is at the crux of this whole thing is it's a falsehood of logic. And would love to get on one of these shows one day and be able to interact with these folks, because I think they miss a bigger picture sometimes. They're too myopic and too close to the bark on the trees, instead of looking at the forest from the helicopter. So, I don't agree with that.
No, it was about Andrew Wilson. He brings up tone policing sometimes when people say, well, I agree with you, but I don't like the way you said it. I think it's just because he doesn't meet people where they're at. And I don't think he's...
Oh, that's a bunch of woman garbage. We have to meet people where they're at.
Do you want the vision that you see for the world? Or
not? And the vision I see for the world is not going to be met through convincing a bunch of emotional, irrational women that what is reality is non-negotiable.
Why do you have to be hateful in your speech?
It's not hateful.
What about male passivity?
More woman garbage.
You don't have to say it like that, though. You can just say
that is tone policing. It's nonsense. This whole, I agree with what you said, but not how you said it. That's bullshit. And this is the problem with giving women power, because now suddenly everyone's an HR manager. Everyone's a hall monitor.
I just don't understand why you have to say woman in front of it.
Because it's a woman problem. Men don't do this. Men don't constantly go, I agree with you. I just don't like to deliver. Share?
Again, I think they're missing something here. Men do actually do that. That's not true. There are little bitches out there that are men that are at least male, let's say, that do exactly what she's talking about. But here's the part that's missing. the way that she's approaching and the issue at hand being tone is that the desired result of increased awareness in the target individual is not being met. So that means that the tone is actually a problem. And that's kind of an interesting fact that may rub a lot of us men the wrong way, or people, I think men, and using the male, again, this gender issue, is really not what is front and center here of what the issue is. It's rationality. Who is more rational, who is more logical, and who is more rooted in rationality and logic, and who is not. With the person who's quote-unquote tone policing, they're not rooted just in rationality, they're rooted in emotions. They're rooted in other aspects of their perceptual life that affect the way they perceive reality. And so for them, this tone is of importance. Well, tone does, on some level, indicate a certain amount of consideration, which is the root of respect. When she says it's woman garbage, right, she's basically accused and attributed an entire issue all to one gender. And baked into that statement is a certain lack of respect for women. Whether the statement is right or not, tone does have an effect on people's willingness to accept a message. To use my mentor's way of talking about this, truth can be delivered in a number of ways. Truth can be delivered with, spicy hot peppers and acid and razor blades, or it can be delivered with, sugar and sweetness and, pleasant aromas and things that make the truth go down a little easier. It's like medicine, right? We don't make medicine taste purposely more crappy than it already is. Usually we try to cover medicines up with a little bit of flavoring and a little bit of sugar and things like that. Like if we're talking about cough syrup or some sort of medicine that just isn't a pill, but you get the analogy. That's what's going on with truth. And when you're dealing with people who are where they're at, to use that term, they are where they're at. And it isn't going to work to come down on them hard with sort of condemnation and judgment and the use of, look, you're so ridiculous that you don't listen to logic, even though you admit there's logic here. That isn't having the desired effect. And if you remember when we started this whole podcast a long time ago, of course, we've had a whole channel deleted now, so I don't know how that's translated over. But when we started, I talked about this with a very early episode we did with Ben Shapiro, delivering certain messages to women in this same type of argument space about men and women. And his message was very kind of caustic and a bit derogatory, whether he was accurate or not. The question I posed was, did anyone think that those women changed their minds after that interaction? And the answer was very likely no. And that's what we're talking about. Do you want to be effective or do you want to be right? And I don't see anyone saying that here. That's the problem. Okay, she's right. Good for her. She's right. Let's say that she's right. What good did it do? It didn't change anyone's minds. Nobody changed their minds. The people who agreed with her stayed agreeing with her. The people who didn't agree with her stayed disagreeing with her. No ground was gained. That's the problem with this. And so, these people they're not pragmatic enough. That's where a PEM podcast comes from. Pragmatic ego management, practicality, being practical. Practicality means, how am I going to be effective? I want to make effective changes. I want to make effective efforts in my life. That right there, that discussion was not effective.
You remember me at all? Steven Crowder at all? No, not familiar? No. This is you threatening to slash my tires here?
Oh my God, you
remember this? Slashing my tires and actually...
We're trying to work.
Let me ask you, why do you think it's okay to threaten to slash someone's tires?
I didn't, dude.
I'm a conservative who has a difference of opinion from you, and I've never threatened actions of violence. I've never threatened to slash anyone's tires.
You need to get out or we're going to call the police.
You know what, let's call the police officers. Because matter of fact, we actually have... Actually, I would like to speak with the police. We're about to file a report very soon. This is a part of being a man, is owning up to the actions here. When you threaten violence against someone, part of being a man is taking ownership of your actions, taking responsibility.
I gotta tell you, that was nice. Sometimes, and see, this is an interesting framework when it comes to pragmatic ego management. And what I often refer to as the art of stalking is it's a tricky balance, but sometimes people just need to get smacked down. Like sometimes people just need to get a bit of humble pie. And really there's not a whole lot of ways around that. Now the true artistic way of doing that, and what I'm concerned with here is how effective is he going to be, right? So we get to see this person get put in their place. They've threatened some sort of violent action, some destruction of property and vandalism. Okay, fair enough, right? And now we go and we get the satisfaction of making this rather weenie looking dude, face like a real consequence in the real world. And so we all get this kind of feeling of satisfaction from that. Oh yeah, the good guy triumphed in this. The kind of nasty, wormy little guy who thinks he can just make threats from behind his keyboard gets smacked down. Metaphorically speaking, in a acceptable, nonviolent way, and we're all like, yeah, we cheer for that outcome. My problem is again, like the last clip, was it effective? Did the individual here wake up and go, oh wow, what I did was wrong, and why don't I consider other people, and why did I have this reaction the way I did, and why do I feel entitled to threaten people based off of their conservative political opinions or what have you, right? My guess, again, is most likely not. So it's going to be a long road trajectory. Let's say the police do show up. Let's say they do prosecute the gentleman with the glasses on, the one that made the threats. Let's say that he faces all that. What is his internal reaction going to be? Do you think it's going to be that he actually goes, man, I brought this all on myself. What was I thinking? I need to take a look at my life choices and what I'm doing. Or is he going to get more pissed off at this conservative political gentleman who's been sharing his views, I guess, on streaming channels and was threatened? Is he going to direct his resentment towards that individual and maybe even further towards society and towards the police, let's say, because then the police on some level represent, the conservative, more conservative side of society? What's his internal reaction going to be? I would tell you this. I think if I were betting and we had odds on this bet, I would say the odds are 75% or higher in favor that the kid who made the threats actually develops internal resentment towards the system, towards the guy who confronted him, towards that, instead of waking up. In the art of stalking principles, one is the principles is to never be the boss. And that's a very difficult thing to do. So you have to be extremely creative in doing that. And usually you have to have some sort of confederates. So he would have needed other people to go, hey, you threatened this guy. Instead of him going, hey, you threatened me, someone else would need to actually go up there and go, hey, you're threatening people. What are you doing? Like, I can't really do it all right here off the cuff because it's that difficult. You have to be extremely creative. But you have to divert and deflect resentment, because when the resentment lands, it gives the target individual an anchor point to maintain their unconsciousness. They hang on to that, and that becomes their focus, their resentment and feelings of it's this person's fault and they're all wrong, instead of losing those anchor points and then having to look at themselves and go, wow, I need to start taking account of myself here and going, what am I doing? That is a very difficult thing to get somebody to that point. And so although it's satisfying to see this happen, again, my same question as the last clip is, how effective was it? And I don't believe that that's the most effective way to do it. You have to be more creative, less direct, more creative. And we struggle with this as humans. And a lot of us like the entertainment value of the directness. But I think we miss that indirectness can be even more entertaining. It can be even more humorous, and it's more creative and more artistic. And so indirectness actually ends up being more entertaining if you get very good at it. Now, I'm not particularly good at it either. I come from that very direct place, came from a violent background, studied martial arts for many years, understand direct clashing conflict, no stranger to it. But I understand much more about life now, and that's why I'm able to comment on this in the way that I comment, that I know that it is not actually the most effective approach, especially when it comes to getting people to wake up and learn actual lessons. Directness is usually not the best approach. The people that you can be direct with are usually the people that don't need the lessons anyway. They've already learned them. And the people who need to learn lessons usually don't benefit from directness because of the entitlement, because of the ego, because of the unconsciousness that they have within them. Getting them to wake up is far more tricky than that.
Look at this. A transgender cop car. Look at that. Are you guys cops or you just identify as cops?
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. Where was that?
I'm not sure.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's... You know, I think it's just funny. Who cares, really? I don't care. But, yeah, that is pretty funny. Identity, right? What is your true identity? Who are you really? Are you just whoever you think yourself to be? I just think I am this, so I am that. So, and there's people that do that, like in the martial arts community. Like, hey, I'm an MMA fighter. I'm going to be an MMA fighter. Usually, don't say I am. I'm going to be. Trained with a lot of guys, young guys in their teens and things, who have believed that they were really cut from that cloth, and then found out later that maybe not. There's a reality out there somewhere. It's not all in your head. So, very cool, guys. I got to hop off here, get off to this meeting, this hearing. It's going to be a battle, all-out battle. I'm going to be stalking myself the whole time I'm there. I'm going to be having to manage my own ego. It's certainly not an easy thing to do when individuals threaten your entire livelihood and everything you've worked most of your life for. That is quite a challenge to keep your own ego in check in those circumstances, and that's what I'm going off to face right now. So I'm going to hop into a suit and tie and get out of here. Guys, if you get a chance, go to psychedelis.com, go check it out. Like I said, we've been building a lot of things going on. We're going to be working on some affiliate marketing with some people and businesses and growing from there. So, yeah, it's been another good one. I will see you next time. Okay, guys, hopefully you've been liking the content we've been providing so far. We've been covering a lot of different topics here. And, you know, for long form, you're checking us out here on YouTube. Also, you can find us on Rumble for short form. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at ThePemPod. Also, be sure to check out psychedelis.com. There we're providing a lot of different services. We've actually made further progress on the development of the website, which eventually will be an app. You can find treatment options there, including retreat centers, clinical facilities, individual trip sitters, clinicians, facilitators, integration coaches. We've got all that up now, and then we've got something called the Learning Center where you can go if you don't really know that much about psychedelic therapy or you want to learn something about a particular niche there. We will be including that soon. So go ahead and check out all of those areas there if you guys want, and just happy to be here with you. So hopefully have you here taking in more of our content in the near future. Thanks. It'd be great if you left a like, and also if you'd leave a comment would be awesome. We'd love to interact with you guys in the comments below. Also, if you would like to have me react to a video that you choose and that you think would be a good one for me to take a look at, or even a personal video or request of some sort, you can email us at thepempod@gmail.com, and I'd love to hear from you and interact with you there.